You may not realize it, but the stories that you tell in your business today, in fact, the stories that you tell your customer, are the same stories you've been telling yourself since you were just old enough to play in the dirt unsupervised.
Welcome to Leading Leaders Podcast, 5-minute videos, 5 days a week.
I'm Loren Norris with Leading Leaders Podcast. We often don't think about it, but the stories that we tell when we meet someone new, the stories that we tell about ourselves when we're in a job interview, the stories that we tell when we're trying to impress a would-be girlfriend, boyfriend, new friend, all of those stories, they pretty much come from the same place. The deep down who that we really are. But understand too that those same stories that fill your job interviews, that fill your sales prospect interviews, to close that big deal, and they say, well, just tell me a little bit about yourself. And these stories start to bubble up from inside. Kind of like when you're hanging out with old buddies. The moments that you run into somebody you haven't seen in several months, or maybe you've seen them for years. But they're the same stories that always come up about that time when you did that thing, together. And you only have to mention a tiny little phrase, and suddenly everybody in the circle knows exactly what you're talking about. It's almost like an inside joke, because it is an inside joke. It's the deep core belief about who you are. It's the deep core belief about the relationships that you have with people, the way you treat them, and the way that you've been treated. But see, the thing that we have to understand is that this story power, it's a double-edged sword. Because it can both identify who we've been and simultaneously identify who we will be. If we don't get a hold of those stories and ask, is it true? I mean, is it something that I believe, or is it something that I know? And those are not always the same. Sometimes our experiences have fooled us. The lived through, we thought, well, that was awesome. That was so much fun. But we don't realize it was actually, it was against the law. Or as much fun as it was, we were on the edge of losing our own life or taking somebody else's in the process. We tell these stories and we regale them with facts and reminisce the fun that we were having at the time, and we don't realize there are other people who view that same moment and go, are you kidding me? You used to live like that, think like that, be like that, do like that? How do I know you've changed? Are you still that would do that? See, those stories, they reveal a lot about us. Sometimes a lot about us that we would have preferred not to reveal, but it's just the same old story we've been telling all of our lives. Just think for a moment back to the impact of the Mother's Day, Father's Day card experiment they did in prison a few decades ago, where they offered Mother's Day cards for inmates to send to their mothers, and like 98% of the inmates took them up on it. Hundreds of thousands of free Mother's Day cards went out all over the world. Father's Day came around and they made the same offer. We'll provide Father's Day cards to send to your fathers free of charge. We'll even pay for the postage, and almost no takers. And when they asked why is it that Mother's Day they gave cards and Father's Day they didn't, most of them came back and said something along the lines of, I didn't know my father, or my father hated me, or my father had nothing to do with my life, or my father was the one who told me I would only be in jail the rest of my life. See, those childhood stories, they have a deep impact. And whether we tell them to ourselves, or we tell them to other people, or we just hear those stories being told about us, they shape who we are, the decisions that we make, the way we think about money, the way we think about others. And they define your success path if you're not careful. For some people, John Maxwell being one of those people that his parents only allowed him to have positive work ethic, positive belief systems, positive effort. All of his life, he had a positive attitude because he got it from his father and he got it from his mother. And I've met his father. And at 90-something years old, he still has a very positive attitude. And that positive attitude created positive childhood stories. And if you look back at John Maxwell's success, read any of his books, you'll find that those stories even today reinforce his success because he believes about himself things that a lot of people are unwilling to believe about themselves. You have to start now crafting those stories in the lives of your children and in the lives of those around you. You also have a chance in your own life to rewrite the stories that you tell, which will impact your success. I'm Loren Norris with Leading Leaders Podcast, or Tell It Like It Is TV. Have a blessed day.
Subscribe now for our extensive video library of leadership lessons promoting faith, family, and freedom.